This is Homeschool 101, a collaboration between ABS Television and the Ministry of Education. Stay attentive and attempt all activities. And now, today's lesson.
Buenas tardes, estudiantes. Bienvenidos a Homeschool 101. Hoy vamos a repasar los verbos. Good day, students. Welcome to Homeschool 101. And today, we are going to review your verbs. Before we begin, I want to just say a little poem for you, just to get you excited and get things going. So, listen and listen carefully. Mr. Verb is an action man. He's been around from since time began. In English, Spanish, and French, Mr. Verb makes it all make sense. So come sit a while. Let me tell you something wild. You say you want to learn Spanish? Then don't be so standoffish. Come on, come sit a while. Let me tell you something wild. Mr. Verb will help you speak Spanish. He will make you sound so distinguished. Mr. Verb is very important to the English, French, Spanish, Dutch, to every language we speak. And today I want us to review our verbs. Now, we have different tenses. In Spanish, in English, in French, that we speak in different tenses, whether it be the past tense, present tense, future tense. I want you to guess. I'm going to say a little poem for you. I'm going to tell you a little about myself. And I want you to listen carefully. And I want you to tell me which tense you think I'm going to review today. So, take a listen. Buenas tardes, estudiantes. Mi nombre es Señora Kelsick. Yo vivo en All Saints con mi esposo y mis dos niños. Yo soy profesora de español en Princess Margaret School, donde yo enseño los niveles 2 a 5. Es todo por ahora. Gracias. Could you guess from that what tense I was speaking in? I said mi nombre es. I said yo enseño. I said yo vivo. If you guess the present tense, then ding ding ding, you got it right. We are going to review the present tense today. And I know for some of us we may be thinking, oh, that's so easy and that's so simple. But you'd be surprised how sometimes we make simple mistakes and trip ourselves up when we're looking at the present tense. And it is very important, especially as you prepare for your oral exams, that you learn and you review your present tense, because we use it quite a lot when we're talking about our families. We're speaking about school. How do you get to school? Yo voy a la escuela en coche. You want to describe your teacher? You speak in the present tense. Mi profesora es alta. Mi profesora es bonita, como yo, like I am. So we need to learn the present tense. We need to review it and ensure that we understand it well before we go into our exams. Now, the first thing I want to do when we're looking at the present tense is talk about when do we use the present tense. You might be thinking, but Miss Kelsick, that's just so simple. We use it when we're speaking speaking about things that happen in now. Yes, but let me give you a little bit more information on that. So we use the present tense when we're talking about current actions and situations. So for example, vamos al mercado. We are going to the market. Or estoy listo. I am ready. We also use it when we're talking about habitual actions, things we do all the time. So, por ejemplo, yo voy a la playa cada fin de semana. I go to the beach every weekend. So when we're talking about things that we do all the time, things that we're accustomed to doing, then we're using the present tense. We also do it when we're talking about things that are true. We use it when we're talking about absolute truth. So la tierra es grande. The earth is big. It is big, no? Yes. So once we're talking about something factual, we can use the present tense. And we use it when we're talking about actions that may happen in the near future. So for example, yo voy al supermercado mañana. I'm going to the supermarket tomorrow. So if we're talking about something that we're going to do later, or something we're going to do tomorrow, or even something you're going to do next week, then we can always use the present tense. Always think about it like this. If I want to express in Spanish what I do or what I am doing, then I use the present tense. So, I sing, yo canto, my mother cooks, mi madre cocina, my brother dances, mi hermano baila. So once we want to express anything that we do or anything that we're doing, then we use in the present tense. Now, story time again. So remember that Mr. Verb I spoke about in the poem earlier? Yes, Mr. Verb has 3 children, 3 categories of verbs, and we consider them his children. So, for many of you, you will already know, all Mr. Verb's children fall into 3 categories. We have AR. Oops, I don't think you'd be able to see that. Let me just change the color. So let's see, we have, right, so this is much better. We have AR verbs, we have ER verbs, and we have IR verbs. Now remember we say Mr. Verb is an action man. So any word that expresses action, that shows what we do or what we're doing, we know it's a verb. And every verb in Spanish will either end in an AR and an ER or an IR, right? Now, to put this together, let's use an AR example. We have the verb hablar, right? This is the AR, and we call it the verb ending. And then everything before this, H-A-B-L, H-A-B-L, that's what we refer to as the stem. And these two come together to form what we call the infinitive, right? Now, verbs can sometimes be used in the infinitive. However, so that our subject and verb agrees, we need to change, in Spanish, we have to change or conjugate our verb. I usually tell my students, think about it as you're breaking down the verb so that it makes sense. So, for example, in English we say, I walk to the beach, or we go to school. In Spanish, in order for our verbs, our subject and our predicate to agree, we have to change or conjugate our verbs. And this is very simple. I know you know this. You might be thinking, Mrs. Kelsick, this again? Yes, this again, because sometimes we don't remember. So our verbs in Spanish are conjugated based on the tense. So because we're using the present tense, I'm going to go to another page. Because we're using the present tense, we're going to use the present tense endings, right? So let's do our AR verbs first. And our endings will be based on the subject of our sentence. So we have yo, and we know for AR verbs, that will be o. Tú will be as. Él, ella, he, she, a. Usted, a. And I pause here just to remind us that remember in Spanish, we have a formal you, right? So the formal you is usted. That's when we're speaking to persons that we're not familiar with, persons we don't know, or someone who may be in authority, then we have to, speak to them very politely. We use the usted form. Then we have nosotros, we, and that ending would be amos, right? And then we have ellos, ellas, and they, and then we have ustedes, and. Now, ustedes is the plural form of usted, and you use ustedes when you're speaking to a group of persons, okay? Now, these are the verb endings. Now, the tense endings, sorry. So now, how do we conjugate the verb? You have the endings, you have the subject pronouns, you have the verb ending. I mean, what does all of that mean? Let's bring it together. So you have the verb, again, I'm still learning to use this, so be patient with me. So you have the verb caminar, right? It's an AR verb. we know that this is the stem, and we know that this is the verb ending. The first thing you do when you want to conjugate a verb in Spanish is you remove the verb ending, right? So we're left with the stem, camin, C-A-M-I-N. Then you add the tense endings according to the subject pronoun. So if we want to say, and camina, for those of us who may not know, let me track back, it means to walk, right? So if I want to say I walk, then I would say yo camin, and I is an O, so yo camino. I walk. Yo camino a la escuela. I walk to school. Yo camino al supermercado. I walk to the supermarket. Yo camino a la iglesia. I walk to church. If we wanted to say you walk, then we use tu, C-A-M-I-N, and we know tu is A-S, so caminas. Tu caminas. Tu caminas a la playa. You walk to the beach. He walks. We could say él camina. Él camina. Él camina a la casa. He walks home. Or él camina a la escuela. He walks to school. So the verb and tense ending we use will be based on the subject of our sentence. The subject is the focal point of your sentence, and everything in the sentence must agree with the subject. So if the subject is I, we have to use the yo form of the verb. If the subject is we, then we have to use the nosotros form. So if it's nosotros, it will be nosotros caminamos. And I can say, mi madre y yo caminamos a la playa. My mother and I walk to the beach. Or, mi hermano y yo caminamos al parque. My brother and I walk to the park. Right? So very, very simple. And I know you know it. I know you can follow along with me, and that's very good. Again, this is just for revision, and it's important that we practice it, because you'd be surprised sometimes what you forget when you're under little pressure. And when you're sitting in front of that oral examiner, and you have to remember everything, and you're thinking, oh my, oh my, oh my. That's why it's important that even if you think you know, you keep reviewing, you keep going over the present tense, because this is the tense that is used most. I have found that is used most in doing our oral exams, even in your writing exams as well. So it's important that you keep reviewing it so you know it like the back of your hand. I hope some of you really know the back of your hand. All right? So let's move on to another verb. I'll practice one more verb for the AR, and then we'll move on to the ER and IR verbs. Just to note, the AR verbs are the most popular verbs in Spanish. So you'd find a lot more verbs that have an AR ending than those that have ER and IR endings. All right? So let's do another AR verb. For example, escucha. Can anybody tell me what escucha means? Escuchar. Escuchar. It means to listen. So if that's what you said, very good. Thumbs up to you. Escuchar, to listen. So if I wanted to say, they listen to music, right? Which one would I use? I have to first remove my AR, and I'm left with the stem, escuch, right? And of course, I'll be using ellos or ellas. If it's a group of boys and girls, then I'll use ellos. So the ending I will use, based on what we did before, is the AN ending. So I would say, ellos escuchan música. Ellos escuchan música. They listen to music, right? So it's very simple. Once you know the endings, O for yo, let's go back to the ending. The yo form is O, tú has, él, ella ha, usted ha, nosotros hamos, ellos, ellas han, ustedes, and, then it becomes very simple. You learn them, and then you ask yourself, who or what is the subject of my sentence? Once you know the subject of your sentence, then it becomes very easy for you to pick which one you have to use. So if the subject of my sentence is she, then I know it's ella. Ella baila todos los días. She dances all day, right? Or you, tú bailas todos los fines de semana. You dance every weekend, right? So just keep that in mind. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the ER verbs. All right, we're going to move on to the ER verbs. And again, this is the verb ending. So for example, you have a verb like comer. The ER is the ending, and everything before that is the stem. Now the stem is what you add the tense endings to again. And the tense endings for ER verbs are yo, o, tú, es, él, ella, usted, nosotros, hemos, ellos, ellas, en, and ustedes, en. All right? So these are the tense endings based on our subjects. And we have the verb here, comer. So again, remember the tense ending is added to the stem. And when we're going to conjugate, we remove the verb ending so that we can add the tense ending. So if I wanted to say, we eat chicken and rice, that's an easy one. I know a lot of you like to use the chicken and rice because that's the one you remember. So, nosotros, and we would use comemos because it's we. Nosotros comemos pollo y arroz. Nosotros comemos pollo y arroz. We eat rice, chicken and rice. Or if I wanted to say, Maria eats bread and cheese every day. I'm talking about Maria, so it's she. So I know I need the ella form. Now, notice here I'm not using the pronoun, I'm using the noun, the name of the person. So if I use the name of the person, then I don't need to use ella again. I just put Maria, right? But because it's she, this helps me to know that I need to use the E. So Maria, put it to the stem, it becomes come. Maria come pan y queso cada día. Maria come pan. I don't look like no P. Y'all work with me. Pan, oh, that's better. Maria come pan y queso cada día. All right? So, whenever you want to say, or if you want to figure out which form of the verb you're going to use, again, think about who is the subject of your sentence. Is the subject of my sentence Maria? Is it the bread? Is it the cheese? Once I know who or what the subject of my sentence is, it becomes easier for me to say, oh, it's Maria, so I need to use the ella form, which ends in E. Simply add that to my stem, and I'm good to go. Maria come pan y queso cada día. Simple, right? Very simple. So, let's go on to IR verbs. And the example we're going to use here is the verb vivir, which means to live. And we have the verb ending and the stem, right? Now the IR endings, yo, o. Tú, es. Él, ella, es. Usted, es. Nosotros, hemos. Ellos, ellas, en. Ustedes, en. This feels like deja vu, right? Like, I've seen this before. Yes. If you're thinking, man, aren't these the same endings that the ER verb uses? Yes, they are. The only difference, and I wonder if one of you can tell me what the only difference is. If you pointed out that the only difference is the nosotros form where we have hemos instead of hemos, then you're right. Thumbs up. Right? So the IR verbs and the ER verbs use the same endings, the only difference being the nosotros form. Right? So just keep that in mind for when you are using IR verbs. All right, so let's look at our example, vivir, which means to live. If I wanted to say, my mother and father lives in Dominica. Let's go with that. So I'm talking about my mother and my father. So which one do you think I'm going to use? Joe? Does Joe correctly represent my mother and my father? No, because Joe means I. Tú? You? No. He? No, I'm not talking about just my father. Ella? I'm not talking about just my mother. No. So the one that correctly would represent that in the sentence is ellos, because it's they, right? So because we're going to use ellos, then we need to use the ending en. All right, so we're going to add en. Again, remember we're adding the tense endings to our stem, right? Tense endings added to the stem. And once we remove our verb ending, then we will get the stem. The stem is everything before the verb endings. So we have vivir, remove the IR, we get viv. And because I'm talking about my parents, it would be viven. Viven. So this sentence would look like, mi padre y mi madre, or we could have just said, mis padres. Either way it works. Mi padre y mi madre viven en Dominica. Right? So because it's they, it's more than one person, so it's they. So we need the en. Viven, mi padre y mi madre, again, or you could say mis padres viven en Dominica. Or if we wanted to say my sister, mi hermana vive. Mi hermana vive because, oops, I did not realize I made that mistake. Right? One of you couldn't tell me I make that mistake. That's a silly mistake to make. Right? So, mi hermana vive in Nueva York. My sister lives in New York. Or mi abuela vive in All Saints. My grandmother lives in All Saints. Remember when I started and I was speaking about myself, I said yo vivo. This is where I get it from, right? The verb vivir, yo vivo, because I'm talking about myself. I have to use the o, yo vivo in All Saints. I live in All Saints. So what I want to do now is just give you some of the more commonly used AR, ER, and IR verbs in Spanish and see if we could use some of them to make some sentences. All right, so AR verbs, we already used caminar. We have the verb bailar. Now, you may be asked on your oral exams, what do you like to do in your spare time, right? ¿Qué haces en tu tiempo libre? What do you do in your free time? And maybe you want to say that you dance. So you would say, if we remember, the jo for the AR is ends in O. And I hope you realize that for all of the verb types, AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs, the jo form all end in an O, right? Very interesting fact. So, bailar, and I want to say I dance. Durante mi tiempo libre, yo bailo. So, durante mi tiempo libre, yo bailo, right? And remember how we get the bailo? We remove the AR, we're left with the stem, bail. We're left with the stem bail, we add the O, and so we got bailo. Very simple, all right? Another verb, we have the verb estudiar, something that we should all be doing right now because we have our exams coming up. Estudiar. Again, let's say we want to say I study. What would it be? Can you guess? Okay, we remove the AR, that's right. And we're left with estudi. Then what do we do after we remove the AR? Because we're talking about ourselves, I, then we have to add an O. Simple, right? So our sentence will read, I study, let's say you study every night. Yo estudio. Yo estudio. Oops. Cada noche. Yo estudio cada noche. All right, I study every night. Let's look at another verb, another very popular verb, comprar. To shop, something some of us like to do. So, yo compro, what do we like to buy? Yo compro manzanas, I buy apples, cada fin de semana, every weekend. Yo compro dulces, I buy sweets. Yo compro zapatos, I buy shoes. Some of us are really into our shoes. So when we want to talk about what we buy, the things that we buy, then we look at the verb comprar. And again, remember, we realize we're speaking a lot in the yo form. And that's one of the things that makes the oral exams so, I don't want to say easy because I don't want to make you feel like, you know, it can be passed on a whim. But it makes it manageable because you're talking about yourself. So you just have to remember, I'm using this in the jo form. And the jo form always end in O. Not always, but most oftentimes end in O. So we have comprar, remove the AR, we get compro. So compro. So we say I buy. Yo compro camisas y blusas y faldas. I buy shirts and blouses and skirts. Whenever you want to talk about what you buy, we're using the compro. All right? Let's look at some of the more popular ER verbs. We have verbs like correr. Something a lot of us we're doing now that we're on lockdown to ensure that we get our exercise, we're running. And if we remove the ER, right, we get, somebody tell me what we get? Corro. So I run, yo corro cada día. I run every day. O yo corro a la escuela. I don't think that's realistic though, we don't want to be sweaty. Yo corro a la escuela, right? So that's one of the popular verbs. We look at the verb barrer. Barrer means to sweep. So when we want to talk about being around the house, about the chores that we do, we could use the verb barrer, yo barro, right? We have the verb beber, to drink. When we want to talk about what we drink, yo bebo agua muy a menudo. I drink water very often. Yo bebo refrescos cada día. I drink sodas every day, which you shouldn't. You should drink the water. So whenever we want to talk about what we drink, we use the verb beber. These are just some of the regular verbs that we would see in the ER form. We also have the verb aprender, which means to learn. We have the verb leer, right? Leer, to read. So I read, and I hope a lot of us are, reading while we are home and on quarantine. So yo leo. What about if we wanted to say my mother reads? It would be ella lee, she reads. Or we can say mi madre lee. Mi madre lee. My mother reads. All right, very, very simple. I hope you're getting it. I hope I'm doing you justice. And now we have some IR verbs. We did the verb viver already. We have escribir, to write. So let's use another subject other than I, because I think we're comfortable with the I form of the verbs. Let's try using they. So, Marta y Sara. Now we want to say they. They write. Take off the IR. The they form of the verb would end in what? Somebody tell me. N. Very good. So the they form of the word end in N. Escriben. So Marta y Sara escriben una carta. Do we know what una carta means? A letter. Very good. Una carta a su amigo. So Marta and Sarah write a letter to their friend. All right? Again, we're using... It's really taking some time for me to get accustomed to this thing. Y'all bear with me. Thank you. So, Marta y Sara escriben una carta a su amigo. They write a letter to their friend. Again, we're using the EN because we're talking about they, Marta and Sarah. It's more than one person, so we use the third person plural, they, form of the verb, okay? Another verb we see often is the verb recibir, to receive. Then we have abrir, to open. And we have asistir, to attend. This is a good one because you may need to use it on your oral exams to speak about what school, especially if you get asked questions about school. And they ask you, what school do you attend? What school do you go to? ¿A qué escuela asistes? And notice the asistes, I'm using the second person version of the conjugated verb. So asistes would be you attend. So what school do you attend? And then you respond, yo asisto a. So for me, I teach at Princess Margaret School. So I would say, yo asisto a Princess Margaret School. Or you could say, yo asisto a Otis Comprehensive, yo asisto a All Saints Secondary, whichever school you attend, all right? Just to stick something in here, during your oral exams, you're going to hear a lot of asistes, you know, the second person, when they're asking you the question, because, of course, it's the to form, they're going to use the you form. So whenever you get asked a question that ends in the ES or AS form of the verb, then ding ding, that should be an indication to you that you need to use the yo form of the verb when you're responding. So, ¿a qué escuela asistes? Yo asisto a Princess Margaret. ¿Qué prefieres? What do you prefer? Yo prefiero ir al mercado. I prefer to go to the market, right? So whenever you hear the es, asistes, prefieres, puedes cantar, can you sing? Then you answer in the yo form. Yo puedo cantar, yo prefiero, yo asisto. All right? Very good. So I hope we've been learning. I hope you've been following. I hope I haven't been moving too fast. And I still have your attention. Now I just want to let you know that we are going to do a second lesson with you where we go through more of the oral questions, because I know that your oral exam is coming up and some of you may be a little nervous. And I really want you to review the present tense, go over the verbs, the popular verbs, regular verbs in the present tense, so that you are familiar with it. However, as in every language, there are some irregularities. There are some verbs that don't really function, as all the other verbs. They're a little bit different. Just like some of us as humans, we're all different. So there are some verbs that are just different in their own way. So I just want to take you through some of the more regularly used or commonly used irregular verbs in the present tense. All right? And some of these you know very well. Some you may not know too well, but we will become familiar with them this afternoon. So we have the verb ser. And what does ser mean? To be. Very good. Right? And it's yo soy, tú eres, él, ella es, usted es, nosotros somos, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. Now, this is a very popular one because we use ser when we are describing, when we're talking about profession, when we're talking about characteristics, when we're talking about time. It is a very popular verb in Spanish, and so it's very important that you become familiar with it. So if you're talking about yourself, like I said, yo soy profesora at the beginning, I am a teacher. When I'm describing myself, I can say yo soy baja, yo soy bonita. Yes, I think so. Yo soy cómica. A veces. I'm funny sometimes, a little bit. So whenever you're describing, then we're using the verb ser. Whenever you're talking about the time, ¿qué tiempo es? Right? What time is it? Son las 3. Son las 3:30. Es la 1. It's 1 o'clock. Then we're using the verb ser. Very popular verb, and one of the more troublesome ones because we have another verb that means to be as well. So sometimes we get them mixed up. So it's very important that you learn these verbs and learn the uses, especially between ser and estar, so you don't get them mixed up. You don't want to be walking into your oral exam and say, yo estoy alta. That's like treason in Spanish language, right? We don't do that at all. So it's yo soy alta. All right, so please take note of that. Another popular one, as I said, was estar, which also means to be. Yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, usted está, nosotros estamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes están. Now, see, they both mean the same thing, to be, but they're very different situations when we would use each. So if we want to talk about how we're feeling or our emotions, then we use an estar. So it's yo estoy contenta, yo estoy triste, I'm sad, yo estoy enferma, I'm sick. Whenever we're talking about conditions and feelings and location, where something is located. Yo estoy en el baño, I'm in the bathroom. Yo estoy en la escuela, I'm at school. Yo estoy en Antigua, I'm in Antigua. Then we're using the verb estar. So I want you to keep that in mind. So I'm going to give you some other irregular verbs that I want you to look at and review on your own. And if you have any questions, you can always forward to the station and they can forward it to me. All right? So we have the verb ir, which is also another popular one, and it's often used with the preposition a, ir a, to go to. So, yo voy a la playa, nosotros vamos a la iglesia, mi madre y mi padre van al supermercado, my mother and my father, they go to the supermarket. We have the verb decir, to say or to tell. Yo digo la verdad, and decir have an irregular first person especially. Yo digo la verdad, I tell the truth. Then we have the verb poder, to be able to. Yo puedo bailar, yo puedo caminar, I can walk. Yo puedo ir al supermercado, I can go to the supermarket, right? When you're talking about the things that you're able to do, then we're using the verb poder, and this is another important verb that you need to review. We have the verb hacer, to do or make. María hace la cama. Maria makes the bed. Mi madre hace una torta. My mother makes a cake. Yo hago mi tarea. I do my homework. Right? The verb hacer. Then we have the verb poner. Yo pongo el libro en la mesa. I put the book on the table. Or we have yo pongo la mesa. I set the table. All right? Then we have the verb querer. Very important one as well. To want. Yo quiero ir al baño. I want to go to the bathroom. Yo quiero ir al supermercado. No, I really want you to take some time and review these irregular verbs, and I really hope that this afternoon you were able to learn something, or at least be able to review the verbs that you would have learned already. I urge you to keep studying, to keep practicing for your exams, and I look forward to seeing you all here for our next class. Adiós y buena suerte con tus exámenes, estudiantes. Adiós.
You've been watching Homeschool 101, a partnership between ABS Television and the Ministry of Education. Thank you for viewing this lesson. Join us again next time.